June 19, 1941. Samarkand. The ancient city sleeps under a blanket of stars, unaware that something ancient is about to stir. Inside the Gur-e-Amir mausoleum, Soviet archaeologists work by candlelight. Their tools scrape against jade and marble. They are opening a tomb that has remained sealed for 5 centuries. The lid of the sarcophagus groans, stone against stone, a sound that hasn't been heard since 1405. Professor Mikhail Gerasimov leans forward, his breath catching. His flashlight trembles across an inscription carved in Persian script. His colleague translates, and the words send ice through the room. "Whosoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." The archaeologists laugh nervously. Superstition, nothing more. 3 days later, on June 22, 1941, 3 million German soldiers cross into Soviet territory. Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in human history. The curse of Tamerlane has awakened. But who was this man? This conqueror whose very bones carried a warning across centuries? To understand the curse, we must go back. Back to a world of fire and blood. Back to the 14th century, when one crippled warrior rose from the ashes of the Mongol Empire to build an empire of his own. An empire built on skulls. Central Asia, 1336. The Chagatai Khanate. This is a world still reeling from Genghis Khan's thunder. The Mongol Empire has fractured into competing dynasties, each claiming to be the true heir of the great Khan. In a small village outside Samarkand, a boy is born. His name is Timur. His father is a minor noble, a warrior who serves one of the many petty warlords fighting over the corpse of Genghis Khan's dream. The boy grows up with legends in his ears, stories of conquest, stories of empire, stories of a world united under one banner, one will, one sword. But Timur is not born to greatness. He is born to dust and struggle. As a young man, he fights as a mercenary, a soldier of fortune in the endless wars between khans and princes. He is clever, ambitious, ruthless, and then, during a raid, everything changes. An arrow pierces his leg. Another wounds his hand. He nearly dies in the dust of some forgotten battlefield. He survives, but he is forever changed. He will walk with a limp for the rest of his life. His right arm is withered, his hand partially crippled. His enemies mock him. They call him Timur the Lame. In Persian, Timur Aylang. The West will remember this name, but they will twist it, corrupt it into something darker. Tamerlane. The lame man does not accept his limitations. He learns to fight left-handed. He studies the strategies of Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great. He reads Persian poetry and Islamic law. He watches his rivals destroy each other through pride and incompetence. And he waits. By 1370, through a combination of brilliant strategy, calculated marriage alliances, and absolute ruthlessness, Timur has clawed his way to power. He becomes the ruler of the Chagatai Khanate, master of Samarkand. But he wants more. He cannot claim to be a direct descendant of Genghis Khan. Mongol law forbids it. So he creates a puppet Khan, a figurehead from the bloodline of Genghis, while he holds all true power. He takes the title Amir, the commander, and he begins to dream of empire. But Timur understands something his rivals do not. He understands fear. In his first campaigns, he conquers the cities of Khwarezm. When Urgench resists, he makes an example. His soldiers massacre the population. Every building is razed. The irrigation systems are destroyed. Salt is sown into the fields. He doesn't just conquer Urgench. He erases it, but he does something else, something calculated. He allows survivors to escape, to run to other cities, to spread the story. And everywhere they go, they whisper the same words. Timur is coming. He begins to see himself not as a conqueror, but as an instrument of divine will, God's punishment made flesh. In his mind, the cities that burn deserve to burn. The people who die deserve to die. He is not a murderer. He is righteous wrath, and the world will learn to fear him. In 1398, northern India. The Delhi Sultanate has ruled the subcontinent for over 2 centuries. It is wealthy, powerful, sophisticated. Its armies number in the hundreds of thousands. But it is also corrupt, divided, weakening from within. Timur watches from the north. He sees opportunity. He tells his commanders that he is launching a campaign to punish the Sultanate for allowing Hindu practices to persist, to restore true Islamic rule. But the truth is simpler. He wants gold. He wants glory. He wants the world to know that no kingdom, no matter how great, is beyond his reach. In the autumn of 1398, Timur's army crosses the Indus River. 90,000 horsemen, warriors from Central Asia, Persia, the Caucasus, veterans of a dozen campaigns. They move like a storm across northern India. The Sultan of Delhi, Mahmud Tughlaq, scrambles to organize a defense. He gathers his army outside the city walls, 120,000 men, war elephants armored in chainmail, the pride of the Sultanate. The two armies meet on December 17, 1398. Timur studies the elephant corps. He knows his horses will panic at the sight of them. So, he adapts. He orders his men to dig trenches filled with caltrops and wooden stakes. He has buffalo covered in hay and set on fire, driven toward the elephants. When the battle begins, it is chaos. The burning buffalo stampede into the elephant lines. The elephants panic, turn, trample their own soldiers. Timur's cavalry strikes from both flanks. By nightfall, the army of Delhi is shattered. The city lies open before him. Sultan Mahmud flees into the night. The gates of Delhi swing open. For 3 days, Timur allows his soldiers to loot, to take what they want: gold, silk, jewels. 3 days of controlled plunder. But on the 4th day, something happens, something that perhaps even Timur did not plan. A rumor spreads through the Indian population that Timur's forces are weakening, that the citizens of Delhi might rise up and trap the invaders inside the walls. Timur hears the rumor, and he makes a decision. He orders total extermination. What follows is one of the greatest massacres in human history. For days, Timur's soldiers move through Delhi like a scythe through wheat. Men, women, children, Muslim and Hindu alike. No one is spared. Entire neighborhoods burn. The air fills with smoke so thick that the sun disappears. The streets run with blood. Bodies are piled in the squares until they form hills. Hindu temples are demolished. Mosques are desecrated if they stood in the way. Libraries burn. Palaces crumble. Contemporary chroniclers write that the slaughter was so complete that for months afterward, no bird sang in Delhi. The city was a silence broken only by the wind moving through ruins. But some are spared. Craftsmen, artisans, architects, musicians, scholars, anyone with a skill Timur considers useful. They are rounded up, thousands of them. Their families are killed before their eyes to ensure they have no reason to flee. They are chained together in long lines and marched north toward Samarkand. Timur leaves Delhi a smoking ruin. The Sultanate will take decades to recover. Some historians argue it never truly does. But as Timur's army disappears into the north, carrying wagon loads of gold and columns of enslaved artists, he looks back at the burning city and smiles. He has sent a message to the world. Cross Timur, and your civilization dies. And far away, in Samarkand, something extraordinary begins to rise. Great mosques with turquoise domes, palaces with gardens that seem to float in the air, observatories where scholars map the heavens, the most beautiful city in Central Asia, built by slaves from Delhi, built from the ashes of a slaughtered kingdom, a paradise constructed from bones. Isfahan, Persia, 1387. This is one of the jewels of the Islamic world, a city of poets and philosophers, of gardens and libraries, a city that has stood for centuries. Timur's army arrives in the spring. The city fathers come out to meet him. They offer tribute: gold, horses, silks. They promise loyalty. Timur accepts. His army camps outside the walls. For a moment, it seems Isfahan will be spared. But then, something happens. A group of Timur's soldiers, perhaps drunk, perhaps bored, begin harassing merchants in the bazaar. An argument erupts. Blades are drawn. By the time the sun sets, 3,000 of Timur's troops have been killed by an uprising within the city. When Timur hears the news, he says nothing. His face becomes stone. He gives one order: kill them all. His soldiers enter Isfahan at dawn. What follows is methodical, systematic. Every neighborhood, every street, every house. Contemporary accounts say 70,000 people are killed. Some historians believe it was more. But Timur does something else, something that will haunt the imagination of the world for centuries. He orders his soldiers to bring him the heads, not to bury them, not to burn them, to stack them. In plazas throughout Isfahan, towers begin to rise, towers made of human skulls, cemented with lime and mortar. Some are 20 feet high, 28 towers in total. The chronicler Arab Shah, who despised Timur, writes, "The pyramids of heads stood like monuments to the devil himself. Children who survived played in their shadows, not understanding what they climbed upon." One tower is made entirely from the heads of women and children. Timur has the towers constructed where they can be seen from every approach to the city, a warning, a promise. This is what happens when you defy me. Word spreads. Caravans carry the story across Persia, into Arabia, toward the Mediterranean. Within months, every city in the Islamic world knows what happened in Isfahan. And when Timur's army approaches a new city, the gates open before a single arrow is fired. The towers remain standing for decades. Desert winds scour the bone. Eventually they crumble, but the memory does not crumble. Even today, in Persian, there is a saying, "Isfahan towers remain." It means a warning so terrible it outlives stone. Timur has learned that fear is more powerful than swords. One massacre, properly displayed, can conquer 10 cities. He is no longer just a conqueror. He is a force of nature. Inevitable as earthquake, merciless as plague, and he is only beginning. Now 1386, the Kingdom of Georgia, the Caucasus Mountains. This is a Christian land, proud and ancient. The Georgians have resisted Muslim conquest for centuries. Their fortresses are built into mountain cliffs. Their faith is absolute. Timur sees them as an affront, not just because they are Christian, but because they refuse to submit. He invades Georgia 7 times over the course of his reign, 7 campaigns of fire and faith. The siege of Tbilisi, the Georgian capital, is the most terrible. The city holds out for months. Its walls are thick, its defenders fierce. Georgian knights charge Timur's siege lines again and again, dying by the hundreds, but never surrendering. But eventually, hunger and disease do what courage cannot prevent. The walls are breached. Timur's soldiers pour into the city like floodwater. King Bagrat V is captured. He is forced to watch as his palace burns, his treasury is emptied, his nobles are executed. But it is what happens at the monasteries that reveals something deeper about Timur's worldview. His soldiers round up the Orthodox monks and priests, hundreds of them. They are given a choice: convert to Islam or burn. Most refuse. Timur has the church of Meteki set ablaze with the monks still inside. The doors are barred from the outside. Contemporary accounts say the monks sang hymns as the flames rose. The singing continued even as the roof collapsed. By dawn, the church is a smoking shell. But here is the twist that history records. That same evening, Timur performs his prayers. He prostrates himself toward Mecca. He recites verses from the Quran with perfect devotion. In his mind, there is no contradiction. He has destroyed a Christian church because he believes God has commanded it. He sees himself as an instrument of divine will. He is not cruel. He is righteous. This is what makes Timur so terrifying. He does not see himself as a monster. He sees himself as chosen, as holy. Every city he burns, every population he massacres, every tower of skulls he constructs, all of it in his mind is worship. And if you believe you act with God's blessing, there is no atrocity you cannot justify, no limit to the destruction you can inflict. The Georgian chronicles call him the Scourge of God, but Timur would have agreed with that title. He believed it himself. By 1390, Timur controls an empire stretching from the edges of Siberia to the borders of India, from the Caspian Sea to the gates of China. But control is a misleading word. He does not build institutions. He does not create stable governments. He does not leave administrators behind to rule in his name. He conquers. He destroys. He moves on. In Khwarezm, entire cities vanish from history. Urgench, Merv, Nishapur, centers of learning and trade for centuries, are reduced to rubble and mass graves. In some places, he orders that not only the people but the animals be slaughtered. Dogs, cats, livestock, anything that lives. Let nothing remain, he tells his commanders. Let those who return find only silence. But there is method to this madness. Timur is not simply a destroyer. He is an architect of terror. He understands that stories spread faster than armies. A city that hears what happened to its neighbor will surrender before the siege engines even arrive. It is economical. But it is also exhausting. His soldiers begin to whisper. In the camps, away from their commanders, they talk. How many cities must burn? How many towers of skulls must they build? Some begin to wonder if their commander is mad. But they say nothing aloud, because they have seen what happens to those who question Timur. And so the campaigns continue, year after year, conquest after conquest. By the mid-1390s, refugees flood the deserts and steppes. Entire populations are displaced. Families walk for months, searching for any city that has not yet fallen. But everywhere they go, they find the same thing: ruins. The Islamic world is fracturing. Trade routes collapse, libraries burn, scholars flee. Some historians argue that Timur's campaigns set civilization in Central Asia back by centuries. But in Samarkand, something different is happening. The enslaved artisans are put to work. Under the lash, under the threat of death, they create wonders. The Bibi Khanum Mosque rises, its dome visible for miles. The Registan takes shape, a public square of impossible beauty. Gardens bloom with flowers from Persia and India. Timur sits in his palace, surrounded by luxury, and believes he is building paradise. He does not see the irony, that his paradise is a graveyard in disguise.
1402 Ankara, the heart of Anatolia. Two empires collide. In the east, Timur, the aging conqueror, now in his 60s but still hungry for glory. In the west, Bayezid I, the thunderbolt, Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, a man who has expanded Ottoman power across the Balkans and Anatolia, a ruler who believes himself invincible. They have been circling each other for years, trading insults, raiding each other's territories. But now, the dance is over. Timur's army, perhaps 200,000 strong, meets Bayezid's forces outside Ankara. It is one of the largest battles of the medieval period. The day is hot. Dust hangs in the air like a curtain. The two armies face each other across a dry plain. Bayezid's forces are formidable. Janissaries, elite slave soldiers, trained from childhood. Serbian knights, armored and disciplined. Anatolian cavalry. But Timur has something else. He has spent months bribing and negotiating with many of Bayezid's vassals, Anatolian princes who resent Ottoman rule, commanders who feel underappreciated. When the battle begins, the Ottoman flanks collapse almost immediately. Betrayal. Entire units switch sides or simply flee. Bayezid finds himself surrounded. His janissaries fight with desperate courage, but it is not enough. By sunset, the Ottomans are shattered. Bayezid is captured trying to escape. When he is brought before Timur, the two men stare at each other. One, a crippled warrior from the steppes. The other, a sultan who styled himself as the heir to Rome. Timur has Bayezid placed in chains. The legend says Bayezid was kept in a golden cage, paraded from city to city like an exotic animal, fed scraps from Timur's table. Modern historians debate whether the cage was literal or metaphorical, but what is certain is this: Bayezid, the thunderbolt, dies in captivity 8 months later. Some say from suicide, others say from despair. The Ottoman Empire teeters on the edge of collapse. It will take decades to recover. Timur has broken one of the most powerful kingdoms in the world. He returns to Samarkand in triumph, but the triumph is hollow. His body is failing. His legs can barely carry him. His hand shakes when he lifts a cup. He coughs blood into silk handkerchiefs. He has conquered an empire, but he cannot conquer time. Samarkand, 1404. Timur sits in his palace, surrounded by conquered treasure, gold from Delhi, silks from China, scholars from Baghdad. He is 70 years old. His body is a ruin, but his ambition has not dimmed. He has one more campaign planned: China. The Ming dynasty has insulted him, refused to acknowledge his authority. He will teach them the lesson he has taught so many others. In the winter of 1404, Timur gathers his army, 200,000 men, the largest force he has ever assembled. They march east into the frozen steppes, but the winter is brutal, colder than any in living memory. Timur, already weakened, falls ill. His commanders beg him to turn back, to rest, to heal. He refuses. "We march," he says, but his body does not obey his will. On February 17th, 1405, in a small town called Otrar, Timur dies. His empire dies with him. Within months, his sons and grandsons are at war, tearing apart everything he built. The armies disband. The conquered territories revolt. Within a generation, Timur's empire is a memory, but Samarkand remains. The blue domes, the gardens, the mosques, a city of stolen beauty. Timur is buried in the Gur-e-Amir mausoleum, beneath a slab of dark jade. The inscription on his tomb is simple: "Here lies Timur, Amir of the great horde." But there is another inscription, one placed later, one that carries a warning: "Whosoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." For 5 centuries, no one does. Until 1941, June 22nd, 1941, 3 days after Timur's tomb is opened, German soldiers cross into Soviet territory. 3 million men, the largest invasion in history. Operation Barbarossa. The Soviet Union is unprepared. Entire armies are encircled and destroyed. Cities fall like dominoes. Within months, the Germans are at the gates of Moscow. It seems like the end, but then something changes. In November 1942, Soviet authorities quietly rebury Timur's remains with full Islamic rites. The ceremony is attended by Muslim clerics, Soviet officials, and the few remaining archaeologists. Timur's bones are returned to the jade sarcophagus. The tomb is sealed, and at Stalingrad, 500 miles away, the tide of war begins to turn. The German Sixth Army is surrounded. The advance stops. For the first time, the Wehrmacht retreats. Coincidence? Perhaps. But the soldiers who fought at Stalingrad, both Soviet and German, would later speak of the winter of 1942 as something more than military strategy. They called it a curse. The archaeologist who opened Timur's tomb, Professor Gerasimov, survived the war. He never spoke publicly about the curse, but in his private journals, discovered after his death, he wrote, Some doors should remain closed. Some men should remain buried. We disturbed something we did not understand, and the world paid the price. Today, Samarkand still stands. The blue domes still catch the sun. Tourists walk through the Registan, marveling at the beauty. Few know the full price paid for that beauty. Few remember the towers of skulls, the rivers of blood, the cities that vanished from history. Timur believed he was building an eternal empire, but empires are dust. Conquerors are wind. Only the stories remain, and perhaps, buried deep in those stories, is the truth about the curse. Not a supernatural spell, but something simpler and more terrible. A reminder that every empire built on blood will eventually drown in it. That every conqueror, no matter how great, is just a man. And every man becomes dust. The tomb in Samarkand remains sealed now. Tourists peer through the gates, but cannot enter. The inscription is still there, worn but legible. Whosoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I. But perhaps the real warning is this. The most terrible invaders are not the ones who come from outside. They are the ones we unleash from within. The cruelty, the ambition, the belief that we are chosen, righteous, above the laws that bind ordinary men. Timur believed he was God's instrument. Hitler believed the same, and between them, they turned the world to ash. The curse of Tamerlane is not supernatural. It is human. It is the belief that some men can rise above humanity, and history teaches us, again and again, what happens when they try. The wind moves through Samarkand, the domes shine under the sun, and in the tomb beneath them, Timur sleeps, still waiting, still warning, still teaching the lesson no one ever seems to learn. That conquest is not glory. It is merely another word for death. The world is dust, and kings are only the wind that moves it.